Guys, when I had my viewers choose the remaining three categories for WrestleMania Best to Worst, and I gave you options. Why you would settle on Triple H matches at WrestleMania, I don't know. Why did I pick that as a category for you to pick? Did I set up my own downfall on this one? Probably yes. But, oh my god, Triple H's WrestleMania history is one of irritation, annoyances, and not entirely. I don't want to make it sound like it's all bad, but I mean, there were times when he main evented when he shouldn't have. There were times where he won when he shouldn't have. There were matches that were terrible. There were matches that were boring. He's got one of the strangest runs of any long-term WrestleMania performer, because he's just always in a top spot because he's Triple H, and that's really the justification for it. Whether it makes sense or not, or whether the story calls for it or not, or whether somebody else is more over, doesn't matter. Triple H is there, so he has to have a big spot at WrestleMania, and a lot of times that has yielded some pretty damn awful stuff, and especially when I felt like something better could have come along beforehand, and it's I don't know, but you guys could have picked just about. I mean, there were Hogan matches. You could have picked Hogan, who's kind of like what Santa Claus is to Christmas. I mean, Hogan was typically great at WrestleMania. Typically, not always, but you could have picked The Rock. You could have picked Austin. You could have picked literally anything else. But no, you had to settle on Triple H. And because he was in so many world title matches and WWE title matches and main events and shit, some of these matches I had to talk about 3 fucking times, and I'm just like, fuck. And I blame myself. It's my own hubris that caused my downfall. I trusted you all. Okay. This is more my fault than anybody else's, so with that, let's get started. Triple H's WrestleMania history. It's 19 matches in total. His match with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 32 for the title will be number 20. So he's one of the more prolific WrestleMania performers. He's been at a ton. And I wish he wasn't. I really wish he wasn't. And before I go into the list, I do want to make this point. I'm not one of those guys that fucking just hates Triple H because he's married to Stephanie or whatever, and he's in a position of power within the company and all that shit. I don't want to sound like I blindly hate him because of that. What I can say is that judging his artistic work at these events and seeing what they could have done instead, I just kind of look at a lot of these situations and go, this sucked. I didn't want this. And I feel like I can blame Triple H because I know he wrote a lot of his stuff. And that's the thing. It's because of who he's married to, he has a position where he can create and basically write his own stuff and control his own material. And I'm like, dude, you're in control of your own material and this is the best you could come up with? What the fuck, man? Seriously. But like I said, they're not all bad, and we're starting off with the best ones. So with that, here we go. And I do have to make this point. Really, holy shit. My top 4 favorite Triple H matches at WrestleMania are 4 that he lost. And that's interesting. Maybe Triple H matches are better when he loses. I don't know. I kind of had a similar thing with Hogan, where my 2 favorite Hulk Hogan matches, not just at WrestleMania, but ever, are the 2 big ones that he lost, which are to The Rock and to The Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6. So, maybe there's something artistically satisfying about that where Triple H loses and it creates better moments. I don't know. Or maybe it's just a coincidence. I don't know. Maybe I just enjoy watching Triple H lose and it just makes me happy. I don't know. But the top 4 on this list, my 4 favorite Triple H WrestleMania matches are 4 that he lost. So starting off with number 1, my number 1 favorite Triple H match in WrestleMania history is the main event of WrestleMania 20, where he took on Chris Benoit and Shawn Michaels in a triple threat match where he was the defending world heavyweight champion. I talked about it earlier in the world title match video. This match was great. It's my favorite triple threat match of all time. It's one of the best WrestleMania main events. And one of the things that made it so great was that you looked at the situation and you had Triple H taking on his former best friend Shawn Michaels and the whole storyline attached to that. And then Chris Benoit finally breaking through the glass ceiling and being the guy to eventually take down Triple H and win the title. And Triple H, really, except for the 3 months that Goldberg was champion, I think it was like 4 months, Triple H had been world champion from the moment the world title had been introduced in September, I want to say, August, September 2002, all the way through to WrestleMania 20 in April of 2004. So Triple H, there was like a year and a half there where, except for the 3-4 months where Goldberg had it, he was the champion all the way through. So Triple H had a lot put into him as the dominant world heavyweight champion of the Raw brand. And it actually, even though we had to endure a lot of crap during that time, like the Katie Vick stuff and him winning all the time, and him having to beat Goldberg like 6 times, and RVD getting completely derailed, and a bunch of other shit that was going on. One of the good things about it is that it made Benoit's victory all the more satisfying, although I'm sure in hindsight they wish they hadn't put the belt on Benoit for obvious reasons, but at the time it made it a lot more satisfying that Triple H had been this dominant champion that just won all the fucking time. I want to say he was the heel equivalent to John Cena, but to me John Cena's a heel anyway, regardless of what they say, so fuck it, who cares? But yeah, we'll go with that. And when Chris Benoit countered the pedigree into the crossface and got the tap-out victory, it meant so much more and just made for such a great ending. So if Triple H didn't have all of that built into him beforehand, it wouldn't have meant as much. So because Triple H had been so unbeatable and won all the time, it actually made Benoit's journey to the title all the more satisfying. And I think that is a case where Triple H losing actually did help the story more and did make it more artistically satisfying and more emotional, and really was the perfect stamp on the whole thing. Credit to Triple H. He made Benoit look like $1 million. And, and it's not that Triple H is incapable. That's the other thing. He's a very talented, very smart guy. Very intelligent guy. And when he's on and when he's doing what he's supposed to do, he's a fantastic worker. And this is one of those cases where when he's on the same page with the guys he's working with and he's willing to do the right thing at the right time, it creates magic. And this is one of those matches where I gained a lot of respect for Triple H afterwards when it was done. It's like, yeah, he worked hard to put Benoit over, and good on him for that. I mean, they could have easily had Benoit just beat Shawn Michaels and let Shawn Michaels take the tap out there, but no, Triple H did it, and it meant more that it was Triple H who got tapped out instead. So, it's one of my favorite WrestleMania main events. It's my favorite match that Triple H was ever a part of at the grand stage, that is WrestleMania. So, moving right along from there, number 2, the one time that Triple H opened up a WrestleMania 30, the showdown with Daniel Bryan to determine who would move on to the 3-way main event later on in the show for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Again, it's the same story, what I said about the WrestleMania 20 match. When Triple H is on and he's working to make the other guy look good, it makes everything so much better, and he put Daniel Bryan over in the best way possible in one of the greatest opening matches in WrestleMania history. When I did my opening match video, I said it was tied with Bret and Owen, and that's pretty exclusive class to be in. I could not pick a favorite between those two, the Bret and Owen match or the Daniel Bryan Triple H match. So that says a lot, because the Bret and Owen match has been a favorite of mine for years and years and years, 2 decades up until that match. And this was the first time an opening match kind of challenged it. And I was like, no, this might be the greatest opening match in WrestleMania history. And I still can't really decide which one I like more, but in this case, Triple H actually had a cool entrance this year. He had a bunch of really jazzed out entrances. Some of them worked, a lot of them didn't work. I'll talk about the ones that didn't work, but this one kind of worked. He kind of looked like Shao Kahn, and I don't know, this one actually worked. Where say the Conan one at 22 didn't work. I guess because the outfit didn't look as stupid, but and basically, the type of match they had was very kind of Japanesey. Japanesey, that sounds stupid. But a very kind of a Japanese style of wrestling match. And Daniel Bryan, the fans were so into him, and they hated Triple H so much that everything just kind of worked out perfectly. And it played out exactly as it should, set up Daniel Bryan to get into the main event while also making sure he was injured and putting his ultimate victory at the end of the show in doubt, and continuing that story and continuing his build. And Daniel Bryan came out of this looking like $1 million, and Triple H deserves a lot of credit for making him look like $1 million. Now, it's been suggested to me that part of the reason that Daniel Bryan got made to look as good as he did is because CM Punk walked out, and they wanted to kind of teach CM Punk a lesson by making Daniel Bryan look good out of spite or whatever. I don't know if that's true. You'd have to ask them. I have argued that CM Punk walking out basically saved WrestleMania because I'm not convinced that Daniel Bryan would have been in this spot had Punk not walked out, because Punk was supposed to work with Triple H, and the main event, for whatever goddamn reason, was going to be Orton and Batista. So I think Punk walking out and the negative reaction to the Royal Rumble kind of like forced them to change their plans. And yeah, it was good. It worked out much better this way, I think. And it set up a great main event later in the show. And again, Triple H deserves a lot of credit for that. He set himself up as the bad guy, and when it was time, he took the fall and made the hero look as good as he possibly could. And it was fantastic. And nothing bad to say about it, really. It played out perfectly. Number 3, the final encounter that Triple H would have with The Undertaker, the Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania 28. This is the one where he had his Castle Grayskull entrance, or one of 2 Castle Grayskull entrances, actually. I call it Castle Grayskull because that's what it looked like, and of course I'm a He-Man and the Masters of the Universe fan, so that's the imagery that popped into my head. But yeah, I think this was the best one of the 3 matches that these two had at WrestleMania. It made sense for them to kind of do a Hell in a Cell match because these two were kind of the kings of Hell in a Cell, because for years and years they both dominated this match type, but they were both in the 6-pack challenge at Armageddon 2000, that Hell in a Cell match, but other than that, they'd never been in Hell in a Cell together, and it kind of made sense to do this match. They built this match as the end of an era, which it wasn't the end of shit. I mean, look at WrestleMania 32. I mean, Triple H and Undertaker are they're in the top 2 matches at WrestleMania this year. So it's like, that match didn't end shit. Fuck you. I guess you could say it's the last time they wrestled each other, and that's the end of the era, I guess. But it's like, it didn't really end anything. But anyway, yeah, I mean, a lot of the same bells and whistles that they had used in previous Undertaker matches. Bunch of finishers, kickouts, a bunch of chair shots, bunch of like everything. A lot of callbacks to the match they had at 27. I thought Shawn Michaels played a neat role as the special guest referee, even though it feels like Shawn Michaels in this day and age is like, he has to be attached to whatever Triple H is doing, and he has to be like Triple H's sidekick, his Barney Rubble, if you will. And it's like, okay. And of course, Shawn Michaels living up to being the worst special guest referee in the history of wrestling, from a kayfabe standpoint, because I swear to God, every fucking time he's a special guest referee, some screwy bullshit always happens. And it's like, why would anyone want Shawn as a referee? He's the worst, unless you're Triple H, because you always benefit. But yeah, in the back of my mind, I knew that the streak wasn't going to end at Triple H's hands because it would have been a waste to give it to Triple H. But I could sit here and criticize certain aspects of it, but overall, I thought the match played out very well. Like I said, it was the most exciting of the 3 matches that these two had together at WrestleMania. It was just a nice, hard-hitting brawl with Shawn Michaels adding to the drama a little bit. Again, a few bells and whistles and stuff, but overall, I thought it was an enjoyable match and perfectly fine. And yeah, it was just a great match. And it was even though it wasn't the end of anything, as I said, it was a really fun Hell in a Cell match. And yeah, it was also nice that they brought out JR specifically to do commentary for this match, which I thought was funny. It's like, Undertaker and Triple H were like, no, we want JR calling our match. And I really liked, nice touch, I liked using the memory Remains as the entrance song for the cell itself. I thought that was a nice little touch. It's just cool. I mean, that music is just fucking cool. But yeah, just a really cool match, and really kind of got the show back on track after the disaster that happened in the opening match with Daniel Bryan and Sheamus. So it kind of like put some life back into the show, and then so yeah, just a very good match. Triple H lost again as expected, but yeah, just very good Hell in a Cell match. Number 4, another match between Triple H and The Undertaker. The first one they had at WrestleMania 17. To me, this was kind of like one of the last really big pay-per-view pairings from the Attitude Era. We'd never really gotten Triple H and Undertaker one-on-one on a pay-per-view before. They wrestled each other on an episode of SmackDown back in 2000, but never on a pay-per-view level scale. So this felt like a big match because, Triple H was now the top dog, and Undertaker had been the guy that had been around for years, even though he was doing the American Badass gimmick at this point. this is it was kind of neat to finally see them cross paths, and it was a big match to do at WrestleMania. And I remember thinking, man, the streak's got to end, because this is the first time they mentioned it. This was the first time they ever tried to make any kind of big deal out of the streak. But I thought for sure Triple H was going to win this one. But it was chaotic as fuck. I mean, this match, that's the best way to describe this match, with the longest ref bump ever, where the referee got knocked out and just laid unconscious for 20 minutes or whatever it was, which is kind of ridiculous. But what I did like about this match is that it did look different from a bunch of other matches. I've never seen... at least in the WWF, I can't think of too many other matches that brawled into the crowd and then wound up at the production tower, and they chokeslam, Undertaker chokeslammed Triple H off the production tower, and a very just chaotic, crazy match. They gave you some visuals that you don't always get, and I really liked some of the drama. Again, a lot of bells and whistles and stuff, but Triple H using the sledgehammer to get out of the last ride, and they broke out the tombstone, and Undertaker hit the last ride as Triple H was punching him in the corner, and I thought that kind of became the flip over tombstone as Undertaker's trademark counter into a finisher. But Undertaker got the win, obviously, and the streak would continue beyond this point. But Triple H, again, it was, he was really at his peak right now. 2000, to me, was the best year of Triple H's career, and at this point, he was kind of, riding the high of that. He had a very good match with Austin in February, and then he rolls into WrestleMania, and they have a great match here. I don't think it was the best match on this WrestleMania. Some people seem to think that they stole the show that night, and I'm like, nah, I like Rock and Austin. But still, very good match. And as a first pay-per-view encounter between these two, I thought it was very good. Again, very chaotic, very crazy, very wild, which in some ways was very indicative of the Attitude Era. They did that type of stuff a lot, but they did a few different things that kind of made it stand out some more. And to do this type of match in front of that big crowd in that stadium venue was also pretty cool to see. So overall, very cool match. Really enjoyed it. Nothing bad to say about it, beyond the ref bump that took forever. But that said, very entertaining match. Number 5, from WrestleMania 14, Triple H's battle with Owen Hart for the European title, with China in Triple H's corner, but handcuffed to Sergeant Slaughter. This wasn't only the best match of Triple H's pre-main event years at WrestleMania, this was the only good one from his pre-main event years at WrestleMania. This was Triple H's first good WrestleMania performance and match. Obviously, I'm going to get into what happened at 12 and 13, but here it's Triple H finally was put in a position to have a really good match, and he did. He was a European champion going up against Owen Hart, which had some carryover from what happened at Montreal in '97, and Owen Hart had also been injured his ankle, so he was coming into this match hurt, so they had that to play with as part of the story. And then Chyna's interference had always been an issue, so they did the bit where she was handcuffed to Slaughter the whole time, and she eventually broke out of that by blinding Sergeant Slaughter, then low-blowing Owen because she had blinded Slaughter with powder, so Slaughter couldn't see her low-blow Owen, and that set up Triple H to get the win. So a lot of that outside stuff was really good, and really unique to see how Chyna could get around interfering on Triple H's behalf. But the other side of that was very good. I thought the match was really well wrestled. I thought Owen and Triple H were kind of breaking into a kind of a new age style with their match, doing some power bombs and Hurricane Ranas and unique wrestling counters and all sorts of things. So they worked a really good mid-card mid-card undercard match. And one of the better European titles in WrestleMania history, if not the best one. It's either this one or the Shane X-Pac match from the year later. But, it was really, really good. And very impressive performance from a guy who was really up and coming and really starting to be groomed to be in that main event spot. Because the next night on Raw, he would take over DX and then ride that train all the way into next year. And then from that point onward, he would move on to the main event. But, it's not a match of the year candidate or anything like that, but it is an early indicator of the greatness of Triple H that was waiting to break out, and also just a really good mid-card match, and one that was really entertaining and a bit of a hidden gem in WrestleMania's history, because I think Triple H is more remembered at this point in his career for being Shawn Michaels' lackey in DX, which is probably not the best way to say it. More like he was the number 2 to Shawn's number 1, and he was kind of Shawn Michaels' pal. Basically, he was the Barney Rubble at this point. But he had this match at WrestleMania, and it was quite good. So thumbs up. Good job there. Number 6. His second battle with The Undertaker at WrestleMania, their no-holds-barred match at WrestleMania 27. This was the year that Triple H did the 300 entrance, which actually not a bad one. Also, kind of a cool one to see everybody lined up with the shields and everything, and then they unveiled Triple H from underneath. And I'm like, that was actually pretty cool. But this match, I said at the time when I reviewed the show, it was the best match at this WrestleMania, but that goes without saying. I think the match got a little overrated. It was very finisher-festy. This was when the Undertaker WrestleMania matches really started to get ridiculous, where I was like, okay, by the end of it, Undertaker kicked out of 2 pedigrees, like 12 chair shots, and a bunch of other. I think he even kicked out of a sledgehammer shot in this one. Did he? I think I don't remember. Maybe I'm confusing it with the 17 match, but it was getting to a point where I was like, come on, guys, this is getting ridiculous. Like, this is getting absurd. Like, the amount of stuff that Undertaker's kicking out of at this point. But, excuse me. Maybe the match went a little too long. I remember thinking by the end of it that it felt like Undertaker spent the last 10 minutes of this match on his back and kind of worked the match from his back and whatever. And it was just kind of getting to a point where it was like, it started off really hot and intense with them, like, Triple H, like, spine-bustering Undertaker through the announce table, and Undertaker, I could be wrong. I think this is the last match where Undertaker did the over-the-top rope dive. And, so maybe if they'd shaved a few minutes off of this match, it would have played a little bit better overall, because by the end of it, it kind of was getting ridiculous. And there's also that part of me that's kind of like... this is where Triple H booking himself really comes into play. It's like, I like how everybody else, when they're put up against Undertaker, they look like that they're the ones that have the challenge to overcome. Yet when Triple H is put up against Undertaker, he's like he's on the same level as Taker, and like he's just as tough and just as powerful. And in this match, he came off looking tougher than Undertaker. So it's kind of like, yeah, okay. Sure, whatever, Trips. But overall, it was the best match on one of the WrestleMania that I'm not too high on, and it was entertaining for what it was, and it set the stage for next year's, because Undertaker got beat up so bad, even though he won, he got beat up so bad that he had to be stretchered out of the arena, and that set the stage for their match at 28, which was much better, I thought. But the match was good. It was a perfectly fine match, pretty good, but it was never one of my favorites. I think it was for a lot of other people at the time. Number 7 from WrestleMania 24. Triple threat match against the champion Randy Orton and John Cena in a triple threat match for the WWE Championship. Some people might be surprised to see this match so high, because these 3 together, whether it be in one-on-one matches or in triple threats with each other, I swear to fucking God. I hate watching these 3 together. I really do. Anytime they're paired together or it's a 3-way, I instantly get annoyed, because I just hate seeing it. I think this was the first time they ever worked together in a triple threat, so I wasn't completely sick of it yet. But the match itself was good. It was a good, solid triple threat match. For the positioning that it was on the card, it did main event. They correctly gave that spot to Edge and Undertaker, which I'll elaborate on that more when I talk about WrestleMania main events in that entry in the series. But, I thought the match was good. It was a perfectly solid triple threat match. Randy Orton won, which was shocking, because I thought for sure Triple H or John Cena was taking the title. Of course, Triple H just won the belt the next month anyway, so it almost didn't matter. But for WrestleMania at the time, it was like, oh my God, Orton won. I'm legitimately shocked. And it's like, that made the match more memorable in a way, because they did the thing that I wasn't expecting. And it was like, okay, kind of cool. Again, I don't think it's anything special. I don't think it's the greatest match in the world. But considering, I usually, typically do not like the matches between these 3 guys, for them to put on a match that was entertaining, I'll give them credit for that. And, that's about as nice as I'm going to be. And continuing right along here, we have two matches that I've already discussed previously. Both World Heavyweight Championship matches. At number 8, I have his match with Booker T at WrestleMania 19. And at 9, I have his match with Batista at WrestleMania 21. The match with Booker T was not the closing match, obviously, because they were like... That show had 5 main events for all intents and purposes. And, you know, for what it was, and I've talked about this before, but for what it was a good good title match to have. It was one of the few matches that Triple H had during his run in 2003 that was actually good. I mean, because Triple H, and one of the annoyances with him being on top for as long as he was throughout that like 2002 to 2004 period was that, so especially in 03, most of his matches were terrible. Like, and some could say it was because of who he was working with, but I'm like, okay, if you're as good as you say you are, shouldn't you be able to kind of raise the ability, you know, raise the quality of who you're working with? Shawn Michaels could do that. Even Hogan could do that in a way. Because, I mean, if Hogan was working with a big fat dude that doesn't bump, well, Hogan will just get his ass kicked the whole time and then make you care to see the comeback. Triple H would just have these shitty matches with everybody, from Steiner to Nash to Goldberg to, even his matches with like Rob Van Dam weren't that great. It was like, God damn, what happened to you? Because Triple H, in 2000, 2001 was like having the best matches in the company, and now all of a sudden it's like, God, he sucks. What happened? I couldn't tell you, but this was not a good run for Triple H. So this match with Booker T at WrestleMania, for it to be as good as it is, it's like, oh, thank God, Triple H managed to pull off a solid match. There's like an okay match there, of course. And this is a recurring problem with Triple H's matches, is that there was absolutely no chance that he was dropping the belt here, and I knew that going into the show. Like, if Booker T wins the belt, I'll be shocked. And, of course, he lost in a way that was kind of odd, where what I liked about the finish was how Triple H worked over Booker T's leg the entire match, and Booker T went for the scissors kick, and he couldn't hit it, and he just kind of buckled and fell to his knees, and then that set up Triple H to hit the pedigree. The problem was that he hit the pedigree and then waited like 3 minutes, it felt like, to pin him, and then he got the 3 count, and I'm like, well, that makes Booker T look like shit, but okay. I don't know whose call that was to do it that way, but it was like, all right, but... Triple H seemed to put forth a little bit more effort this time around. I remember there was that spot where he locked in the Indian Death, like this unique version of the Indian Deathlock, and that really kind of stood out. And Booker T was allowed to look good up until the finish, and it was like, okay, I mean, that match was about... For a match where the outcome was about as obvious as it possibly could be, the match ended up being about as good as it possibly could. All right, and as for the match with Batista... Again, I've already kind of talked about it, and where I'll give Triple H credit here is that he at least, and you can argue that maybe Batista's not the guy to be getting this. I thought they at least got some mileage out of Batista as a top face, but Triple H, for all the talk that, he buries guys and makes guys look bad, this was a case, I mean, Batista's a guy he legitimately made, because without having worked with Triple H, you probably wouldn't know who Batista is now, and Triple H did help make Batista, like, pretty much all on his own. I mean, of all the things, and I can sit here all day and criticize, Triple H and how he worked with guys and made certain guys look bad. I'm going to talk about it more as I go down this list, but as far as Batista goes, I mean, he did make Batista look like $1 million and did make Batista look good. I've criticized this match for being worked in a way where Batista had to sell most of the time. To me personally, I felt like this match should have been worked in a way where my thought was Goldberg Hogan from '98, where Triple H would just try to hit Batista with everything, and Batista just keeps getting up and keeps coming at him, and then eventually just Batista bombs him straight to hell. But and no, they decided to work more of a traditional match where the babyface has to overcome the odds and whatever. And I don't think Batista's selling was good enough at that point to warrant that style of match. But in any case, I thought the match was solid for what it was. At least Batista went over, and you got something to talk about by the time WrestleMania was over. And like I said, Triple H helped make Batista, so I got to give him credit for that. All right, number 10, his match at WrestleMania 26 with Sheamus. No title on the line here. It felt like this year, like, they didn't know what to do with Triple H, so they just stuck him with Sheamus. It was like, it kind of reminded me of what happened to Undertaker at 19, where the show had all these main events, and then Undertaker somehow got stuck in this shitty tag match with Nathan Jones as his partner against Big Show and A-Train, and they eventually took Nathan Jones out of the match because they knew he was going to fuck it up. But, yeah, it just felt like they didn't know what to do with Triple H at this WrestleMania, so they just threw him together with Sheamus because they didn't know what the fuck else to do with Sheamus. Sheamus, who had just come off of being WWE champion, he beat John Cena for some reason because I think they thought that it's like, oh, the fans want new stars, so we'll just pick Sheamus, and it was like, okay. Sheamus, like, the most inherently uninteresting top guy they've ever tried to make. It's really fascinating. Like, Sheamus's career is just fascinating to me. It's like they were so dead set on pushing him, but I can't think of a guy who I am less interested in than Sheamus, and have been for years. But yeah, it is what it is. But Triple H, Sheamus, this is a match that had no expectations. No stakes, no title was on the line or anything like that. So it was just kind of a match to fill out the card. And for that, it was okay. I mean, it was, I guess when there are no expectations, okay, when you're in the main event, that raises expectations. All right, you have to deliver a certain type of match and be able to close the show out strong. And when Triple H fails in the main event, it kind of magnifies how bad the match is because, like, dude, you closed the show and that was the best you could deliver. Here, it's kind of like, look, I mean, we didn't expect anything out of this match, so it was just there to fill out the card, and for filling out the card, it was okay. At no point in this match, again, a part of the dramatic problem with Triple H, at no point in this match was I convinced that Sheamus was going over. I was like, no, it's like, come on, let's just hit the pedigree and go home. Let's just hit the pedigree and go home. And sure enough, we did. But it wasn't a disaster of a match. Nothing of value was lost. It did not do any damage. So for that, okay, we'll say it was okay. I'll say it was one of the not so bad ones. So, yeah, number 10 spot goes to that match at WrestleMania 26. Now, we are getting it. Now we're going to get into the stuff that hurts. Now we're going to get into the stuff that pisses me off. Number 11, his match with Sting at WrestleMania 31. Why did Triple H go over? Why? What reason was there for Triple H to win this match? I don't know. There's no reason. Sting's first match in the WWE comes in with a lot of fanfare. All the fans that grew up loving Sting are like, oh my God, he's finally in the WWE. This is amazing. Fans who are younger and never watched Sting before are like, oh my God, who's this guy? It seemed like they were setting the stage for an eventual Sting-Undertaker match, which is never going to happen, which I'm kind of thankful for, but whatever. It looked like, okay, wow, they're really going to give Sting his day in the sun. And then he loses. And it's like, well, you just killed it. You fucking killed it. And it's like, once again, it was done to shit on WCW. And I don't care what anybody says. They did it just to continue pissing on the WCW grave, even though the week before, I think it was the week before, Sting said, I am not fighting for WCW. That's ridiculous. I am fighting to get Triple H out of power, to take Triple H out. That's a very singular goal. He wasn't fighting for WCW's legacy or their history. WCW's dead. So why the match was worked in a way that referenced the Monday Night Wars, where DX came out, and then the NWO came out to help Sting, which, as has been pointed out, makes no sense because Sting feuded with the NWO. And it's like, and again, it kind of plays in that whole, like, WWE doesn't know WCW. They don't understand a lot of what WCW did. The NWO, in concept, was supposed to be the WWF invading WCW. That's what it was supposed to be. So to me, the NWO is the WWF. That's why the original three members were Hogan, Hall, and Nash, and why Ted DiBiase was in the early version of the group. It was supposed to look like the WWF was invading WCW. So to me, like, the NWO being treated as if it's not the WWF, it, to me, goes against what the NWO was originally supposed to be about. And if anybody was going to run down and help Sting, to me it would be guys that represented WCW. Guys like Lex Luger, guys like Vader, who feuded with Sting, both, granted, but... if you wanted this to be WCW versus WWE, it should have been like guys like Vader, DDP, Luger, Flair, those type of guys. Goldberg, another one. not the NWO, who was the faction that actively sought out to destroy WCW, and Sting was the last bastion of hope to stop them. And so it made no sense to work the match that way and to do it's a false representation that goes against the memories of the people who saw it, and it falsely represents history to those that didn't live through it, and it kind of creates a false idea of what actually happened during the Monday Night Wars. Because it's like, no, the NWO was the warring faction that tried to kill that company. They should not represent WCW. And if any version of the NWO is going to come out and help Sting, it should be the Wolfpack. That's the other caveat of that. But and part of me also thinks they did that just to say, it's like, oh look, DX outsmarted the NWO too, and I'm like, just got to keep pissing on that WCW corpse. They couldn't help themselves. They just could not help themselves. And you got JBL on commentary just shitting on Sting the whole time, shitting on WCW the whole time, and then Sting loses. Like, well, now Sting just looks like shit. And it pissed me off. It pissed me off then. It pisses me off now. And it hurts so many things going forward because Sting was set up to face Seth Rollins for the title later in the year. And wouldn't it have made more sense if Sting went over and then Rollins beats him, and then Seth can go around saying, I beat the guy that beat Triple H, then setting the stage for what I thought they were going to do at this WrestleMania, which was potentially do it at this WrestleMania, or maybe down the road after that, Triple H versus Seth Rollins at some point, with Triple H as the face, and Rollins is the new kind of top heel guy. But no, I can't do that. Triple H has got to look like $1 million, always. And it doesn't matter if it makes sense. And like I said, it killed a future Sting-Undertaker match, which I know they wanted to do that up until Sting got hurt. I'm like, well, you just killed that because Sting doesn't look like a match for Undertaker now. Sting doesn't look like he's a match for Undertaker at all, so why do the match? I mean, you killed it, you know? Where's the drama there? And granted, if they did the match, we all knew Undertaker was going to go over. And if they were just going to have Sting lose his first match anyway, why not just do the Sting-Undertaker match right out the butt? Why even, waste our time doing this match with Triple H if Sting's not going to win? Because it doesn't do anything for Triple H for him to go over. It didn't do anything to disappoint the fans. It just, it sucked the life out of it, and it's a damn shame because the match itself was actually going quite well up until the run-in started rolling in, and it was like, okay, this is getting a little silly. But even then, they did some cool stuff, like Sting breaking the sledgehammer with the baseball bat and all sorts of crazy stuff like that. So even if they had done the run-ins and Sting went over, I would have been like, you know what, that was enjoyable, and we got out of that unscathed. It's like, all right, fine, I'll let it slide. But they did the run-ins that don't make sense, and then they had Sting lose anyway, and it's just like, whatever. Of course, I mean, Shawn Michaels did help Triple H and everything, but it's just kind of like, oh my God. Again, Shawn Michaels has to interact with everything that Triple H does now. He's his Barney Rubble. God damn. Oh, this was also the one where Triple H did the Terminator entrance. This was not one of his better entrances. That get-up looked so stupid. I mean, it's like, dude, wow. You look really, really dumb. Really, really, really dumb. But, you know, this was not this one. This was one that should have been so easy to book, and they just decided not to do it. And I swear it had to do with them just wanting to shit on WCW one last time. And that was exactly what it was. And it's like, guys, you won, okay? You won. Could you let us Sting fans have our day in the sun? And they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't let us have it. And it was like, this was the perfect opportunity to give Sting a pay-per-view win, because he wasn't going to beat Taker. That was for damn sure. And, you know, and if you put him up against a young guy, you hurt the young guy. So it's like, this was the perfect opportunity for Sting to win a match. And they didn't do it. So, fuck them. It's like, fuck them. Oh, and by the way, that was only number 11. We've got 8 more to go. Woo! Okay, next up, the main event to WrestleMania 2000. Triple H defending the WWE Championship, WWF Championship at the time, against The Rock, Mick Foley, and The Big Show in a 4-way elimination match with each competitor having a McMahon in their corner. There was a McMahon in every corner, and was this the worst ending in WrestleMania history? It's up there. I mean, it's up there. It's close. I mean, I'll talk about this more when I go into the main event best to worst video, but I mean, this was probably the first time where Triple H went over, and I was like, man, that shouldn't have happened. I mean, it was really, what a lackluster fucking way to end WrestleMania, especially as, like, this was the first 4-hour WrestleMania, if I recall correctly. Or at least the first one that had, like, the extra hour attached to it, I think. And I remember they did the WrestleMania all day long package to go along with it. I didn't order the all day long package. I wish I had, because this WrestleMania sucked. And I was like, man, I would have enjoyed the highlight packages over this fucking shit. But, yeah. God, this match was, I'll say it again, I've said it before, it should have been Rock and Triple H one-on-one, because Triple H beat Foley and retired him. Foley shouldn't have come back. It was like, that part of Triple H's heat should have stayed intact, and Triple H should have been set up to take the fall at WrestleMania, and maybe have Foley in Rock's corner or something. Basically, what they did at Backlash the next month is probably what they should have done at WrestleMania. Only, you know, they had Austin return at Backlash, which I'm sure helped spike that buy rate quite a bit. But, yeah, it was... the four-way just felt over-bloated. Having the McMahons involved and McMahon in every corner just felt like there were too many moving parts, too many components, and of course the whole thing set up a Vince McMahon heel turn again, which by this point I was like, oh god, another McMahon heel turn. I was kind of getting tired of it by this point, and this is 2000, and we've had 16 years of it since. I was like, when Vince turned, I was like, oh fuck. I was like, god damn it, here we go again. And yeah, Big Show felt like a complete non-factor in this match. Like, why the fuck was he in this? Foley lost again, so what was the point of putting him in this? I mean, it was just kind of like, I mean, Foley was like, he'd already lost to Triple H like 10 times, so it's like, I mean, why even? It should have been Rock and Triple H one-on-one with Rock winning the title, and Triple H went over because reasons. And of course, Triple H and Rock would actually go in to play hot potato with the belt for the next few months, which was really odd. But in any case, I mean, this match was just a forgettable main event. I mean, that's really the best way to describe it. And the ending really kind of sucked the life out of the show, even though they did let Rock save face a little bit by having him give the Rock bottoms to all the McMahons, including Stephanie. It was, they tried to have Rock save face as much as possible, but really it was still kind of like, it felt like this was the ending to a B pay-per-view, and it was like, dude, this is WrestleMania. This is supposed to be like the culmination. It just feels like, man, really? That sucked. And it did suck. And, I mean, not as much as some other things. I mean, the match itself is not the worst thing ever, but it's the ending that kind of sucked the life out of the whole thing, and that was really the main problem. But what are you going to do? Next up, Triple H versus Kane at WrestleMania 15. You know, this was part of the problem with Russo's booking, where he tried to over-gimmick the shows and go for that Crash TV element, where it hurt this match. These two actually had a cage match on Raw, I think, like in February, prior to this pay-per-view. So how the fuck do you go from a cage match to a regular match at WrestleMania? That makes no fucking sense. It's like, Vinny Roo. You got to have an idea of, like, raising stakes with each, like, subsequent rematch. And, you know, you can't go from a cage match to a regular fucking match. You can't do that. That's stupid. And it just makes this match feel unimportant and a little bit more forgettable. And it wasn't one of those cases where they did the cage match and then tried to make you forget about it. No, they referenced the cage match during this match. So it was like, it was fairly recent, so how could you forget about it? And, the end result was kind of a bland, lackluster, dull match. Where I'll give it some points is that it at least did serve a purpose, where they'd done the whole angle where China had betrayed DX and joined the corporation. Kane was forced into the corporation. He was an unwilling member, and they forced him by saying, it's like, if you don't join the corporation and help us out and be our muscle, we'll have you committed. And so Kane was being blackmailed, basically, into being in the corporation. But he had grown a bond with China, and while Kane was being used to destroy Triple H, he tried to throw a fireball in Triple H's face, and he accidentally hit China and burned her retina or whatever. So Kane was upset that he hurt China, who was like his friend at this point, and Kane went into this match angry, wanting to destroy Triple H because he blamed Triple H for China getting hurt. China returned in this match, and turned on Kane and joined back up with Triple H. So you had this moment where you kind of felt bad for Kane. It was like, oh, poor Kane got betrayed again. And Triple H and China reunited, which was like supposed to be like a really big, like kind of Liz and Randy at 7 almost. And not quite up to that emotional level, but kind of like, yeah, they're back together. Yeah, yeah. And it was actually like, that part of it at least served a purpose. It was fine. My only real knock on that is that China hit Kane with a chair and got Triple H disqualified. I'm like, wouldn't it have made more sense if she helped Triple H win? Because that's one of those things, I talk about it all the time. It's like, DQs only work if you're saving a title. Intentional DQs only work if you're saving a title. Otherwise, you're just costing yourself the match, and you look stupid, and Kane gets the winner's share of the money, It's like, I mean, they still do that, right? There's still like a loser share and a winner share, right? No? Okay, maybe I'm just overthinking it. But really where it paid off brilliantly was in the European title match later in the show, where it was revealed that Triple H had also joined the corporation, and that China and Triple H are now both working for the corporation, and Kane's been ousted, and DX is left without their leader. And it's like, oh my God, that was huge. So, yeah, the match itself sucked. But there were some storyline implications that actually saved it from being a complete waste of time. So, it should probably be lower on the list, but the fact that it serves some points storyline-wise actually helps it out a little bit. It's like, all right, you served a purpose. I can forgive you for serving a purpose. So, moving right along from there to number 14, let's go to a match that served no purpose at all whatsoever. Triple H versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 29 in a no-holds-barred match. Now, this match, somehow, in rewatching all these matches, this match was somehow worse than I remember it. Because, and I think Punk and Taker had a lot to do with it, where these two had to follow Punk and Taker, and the energy of the crowd was just gone. Like, they were just gone, and it just didn't matter. But even disregarding that, to me, there was no reason to do this match again, because they did this match just so Triple H could get his win back over Brock Lesnar. Because Lesnar had beaten him at SummerSlam, broke his arm twice, and Triple H had to get his win back. Why? I don't know. I don't see the point in Triple H getting his win back. I don't see the purpose in having Lesnar take another loss. I mean, this was Lesnar's 3rd match since his return, and after losing this match, he was now 1-2. And it was like, I thought they'd ruined Brock. I thought Brock was dead. Like, they just killed him. And then the cage match they had the next month, where Lesnar beat him, was like the dumbest fucking match I've ever seen, where Triple H basically worked over Brock the entire time, and Heyman had to help Lesnar beat Triple H. I'm like, this is so fucking... Yeah, there's your monster, everybody. There's your monster. Triple H did not make Lesnar look good, in my opinion. But, yeah, and I wasn't a fan of their matches. That I called it the trilogy of mediocrity. Was never a fan of these things. Triple H entrance here, he had another Castle Grayskull entrance. This was the one where he actually got burned with dry ice on the entrance, which, ouch, that must have hurt like a bitch. And he looked like he no-sold it too, like he didn't even flinch. But, I guess the adrenaline was running. But, yeah, what's there to say? It was just kind of this long, drawn-out, kind of dull match where Lesnar kind of just threw Triple H around the entire time. And this was the one where... This was probably the best match that the two had together. The best of the 3. Because this was the one where Triple H actually took a beating for Lesnar, but it was all done so Triple H could come back and win, so who cares? And I remember there was a joke at the time where steel steps are apparently Brock Lesnar's kryptonite, because Cena beat him by FUing him or AAing him on steel steps, and then Triple H beat him by pedigreeing him on steel steps. So it's kind of like, okay, so steel steps are his kryptonite, apparently. They did that whole bit where Triple H tried to tap Brock out with the Kimura lock, which that was actually the best part of the match, but I was also sitting there like, don't let Brock tap out to Triple H. If that happens, I will, lose my shit like you wouldn't believe. Thank God they didn't do that, but, yeah, I was at this WrestleMania. I was live in the live crowd, and I can tell you, sitting in that crowd, we didn't give a shit. We were bored out of our skulls. And again, a lot of that has to do with Punk and Undertaker coming right before it, but this match, again, it was just pointless. So it's like, all right, they went to all the trouble of putting Triple H's career on the line. Triple H just won anyway, so it's like, okay, whatever. I mean, nothing was accomplished with this match. It just put Lesnar back further down the hole. Fortunately, by some miracle, they were able to fix Lesnar, and now you view Lesnar as unbeatable. Him ending the streak had a lot to do with that. Also, I think the match with Punk certainly helped and get Lesnar back on track. But, yeah, this match was just completely pointless. I wish they didn't do it. I wish they'd come up with something different for Lesnar to do. Or if they're going to do this match, I wish Lesnar would just beat him again. Like, why? Well, they put Triple H's career on the line. You can't have Triple H's career. They put his career on the line. Nobody twisted your arm and forced you to make that stipulation. And why not let him retire, Triple H? I mean, what? Triple H is like a fucking... executive in the company now. His spot is fine. He's not going to be looking for work after this. He's perfectly okay. And there's a billion different ways of looking at it, but whatever. They did what they wanted to do, and that was that. Next up at number 15 is actually a match that doesn't piss me off. It makes me laugh, actually. Triple H's WrestleMania debut at WrestleMania 12. His match, we'll call it that, with the Ultimate Warrior, where Ultimate Warrior no-sold the pedigree and beat him in under a minute, or around a minute, or whatever it was. If you don't like Triple H, this match is hilarious. If you do like Triple H, it's probably a match you don't want to remember. I guess you could say Triple H got Daniel Bryan, because at this point... his career obviously moved on to bigger and better things after this. I mean, it wasn't a career killer by any means. They had a plan lined up for him, actually, after this, because he went right into his feud with Mark Marrow. Actually, point of interest, this match actually introduced WWF fans to Sable. She was the girl that escorted Triple H down to the ring, and... it was actually her inclusion that actually led to the feud with Mark Marrow. Mark Marrow, who was getting ready to make his debut into the WWF. So, they did what they wanted to do. They wanted to give Warrior a strong return back into the company. I guess to that end, it was fine for that. I'm not sure I would have used somebody like Triple H who had been undefeated for as long as he was and was a little bit higher on the totem pole. I mean, he wasn't a main eventer, obviously, but he was in that like solid mid-card stage. You think they would have fed somebody a little bit lower in that type of match to Warrior. But like I said, they wanted Warrior to have a big impact when he came back, so that was the reason behind that. But yeah, if you don't like Triple H, this match is fucking hilarious, and I'm sure he would have wanted his WrestleMania debut to go much better, but it is what it is. And again, unlike the other bad matches on this list, this one doesn't piss me off. So, yep. From there, we go to the very next year, actually. Number 16, his match with Goldust. Goldust had Marlena in his corner, and Triple H, for the first time at WrestleMania, had Chyna in his. I believe Chyna had just been introduced, at least maybe a few weeks before this. She wasn't with the company very long at this point. You would expect this match to be solid. Both guys were over at this point. Like I said, a little bit higher in their standings within the company by this point, and they had a feud going. You would have thought that this would have actually been one of the better matches at WrestleMania 13. It was not. It was a bad match. It was not good. It was, again, long, drawn out, boring. They didn't really click. I don't know what it was, but this match just didn't work for me. The best part of the match was Chyna grabbing onto Marlena and bear hugging her and basically ragdolling her. So it really put over Chyna's strength. That was the best part of the match right there. Other than that, I mean, this was a snooze fest. This was just not good. This was just another part of my, another piece of evidence for me when I say that WrestleMania 13 is one amazing submission match away from being the worst WrestleMania of all time. This match kind of adds into that. It's like, yeah, this was a dog shit, boring ass match. Okay, it's just like everything else on this card except for Brett and Austin. I guess no damage was done. I guess it wasn't the main event or anything like that. It was just kind of but it was a bad match. There's not really a whole lot else to say. It wasn't a good match. Like I said, Triple H's first good WrestleMania match wouldn't be until the next year at 14. And I think I've already said more about this match with Goldust than anybody cares to say. It was Triple H's first WrestleMania victory. I can say that. He did win the match. But other than that, whatever. And now let's close out this list with the final three entries. Now, the thing that all three of these entries have in common, spots 17, 18, and 19, is that these were 3 times where Triple H main evented WrestleMania. These were 3 matches that closed out a WrestleMania, and in my opinion, they were disasters. These were 3 times where Triple H was put in the main event spot, the closing spot of WrestleMania, and they were terrible. They were terrible. I mean, there's nothing else to say. Fuck. I mean, to see him take this many times in a WrestleMania closing main event spot, it's just astounding to me. It's like, how the fuck do you get in this spot? But, you know, these 3 main events right here are so frustrating and so annoying and so bothersome, and especially when I feel like there are better options, or at least better ways to execute what they did. And for these matches to turn out as poorly as they did, I just was like, fucking hell. It's ridiculous. And these 3 matches irritate and annoy me beyond any shred of sanity that I'm able to cling to. Starting with his main event at WrestleMania 18 against Chris Jericho for the Undisputed Championship. This was a match that was supposed to culminate Triple H's return to the ring and return to the main event. He won the Royal Rumble this year, and he was, he was primed and ready to basically take the belt. We all knew he was going to win, but, they crafted, he had torn his quad the year before, so again, it was like his return, he wins the Rumble, and then he just builds all the way up to WrestleMania, where he ultimately wins the belt. The problem is that, and this is where I get mad at Triple H, because it's like, dude, I know you write your own crap, and if you're going to win the belt at WrestleMania, don't you want the guy you beat to look like $1 million? Don't you want the guy that you eventually go over to have all the heat in the world and to look as credible and as strong and as great a champion, so that when you beat him, it feels like a big deal? They did not do that with Chris Jericho. The first Undisputed Champion beat Rock and Austin in the same night, and then it's time to get into WrestleMania, and he winds up joining up with Stephanie McMahon, who Triple H and Stephanie got divorced in storylines by this point, because Triple H turned face, Stephanie stayed heel. And I believe they did the bit where she faked a pregnancy, which that's a smart thing to do. That's the dumbest idea. It's like, don't you think sooner or later he's going to figure it out? But in any case, it's like, so she wanted revenge on Triple H, and she joined up with Jericho. Not in a romantic relationship, but they were business partners. Because that's so much more interesting and a lot more, really drives the story home a lot better when it's... Fine, whatever. Again, wouldn't you want it to be like they were fucking, so that way when you get to WrestleMania and you kick his ass and you take the title, it's more satisfying and makes the story more gratifying? I'm just saying. It's like, because making it business partners, that just neuters the whole thing and makes it less interesting. And Chris Jericho, in the build-up, winds up cleaning up dog poop. Because Triple H's dog Lucy was somehow a cornerstone in the build-up to this whole thing. I don't know how that worked, and don't ask me how I remember the name of the dog either. Chris Jericho, on Stephanie's command, wound up cleaning up dog poop, and that was part of the problem, where really Chris Jericho was just an avatar for Stephanie McMahon. Really, this match was Triple H versus Stephanie. And Chris Jericho was just the avatar acting in her place. And he's supposed to be the champion, and he's basically just a shadow there carrying the belts that was destined to lose. And it played out exactly that way. But because they did things the way that they did, the match was boring. A lot of people blame that on Hogan Rock going before it, and that's a common excuse for Triple H, it seems. You can say that. You can't predict how the fans are going to react to something like Hogan Rock, but you can control how your main event is built up. And they built it up like shit, and the fans responded to it appropriately. The biggest thing they popped for was Stephanie getting the pedigree, and it's like, because she was treated like the most important part of the story, not the champion. So Triple H needed to overcome her, not Jericho. And it was like Jericho was just there to hold on to the belts and drop them. And he was not made to look like any kind of a threat to Triple H. And because they did that, it resulted in a boring match where Triple H just won, which we all knew was coming. And it was a disaster. It's a shame, too, because it's like, this is Chris Jericho's big WrestleMania main event. It's his time to shine, and he's being made to look like garbage. And, again, this is part of where I blame Triple H for these things, because I know he writes his own shit. And, I don't care who you're married to. I don't care who you're fucking. It's just, I know you have control over your shit. Why can't you write better shit for yourself? Because really, I mean, it reflects on you, too, that you're attached to this shitty main event with a horrible storyline. But, okay, it would actually get worse from there. Triple H versus the champion John Cena for the WWE title at WrestleMania 22, a match that just fills me with a rage every time I think about it. This match enrages me. Like, I get so angry whenever I think about this match. Having to rewatch this match as part of this best to worst thing, it's like, God, I hate this match so much. And I have to talk about it 2 more times after this because, yay! God, I hate this match. I just really hate this match. And part of that is because I felt like Edge should have been in this spot. Edge should have gone into the show as the champion. And they squandered that just to put him into a senseless feud with Foley, which he ended up stealing the show anyway because he was fucking hot as fuck back then. God, I mean, and the main reason why this match doesn't work for me is because you have a babyface in John Cena who I can't stand at this point, and he's going up against a heel that I don't give a fuck about at this point. So it's kind of like, I mean, who do you root for? I'm like, oh, that's great. It's the guy I hate versus the guy I'm bored with. It's like, okay, who gets the title? I don't care. I really don't, because either way, I'm miserable. The day after WrestleMania, either way, I'm like, oh God, what are we getting now? It's just, there's no relief here. It's just neutrality versus neutrality. It's choosing a kick to the nuts or a bullet to the foot. I don't know. It's just, it's bad. It's really bad. Really, really bad. And when they started kicking out of finishers and stuff, and this is part of where I say kicking out of finishers is not be-all, end-all to a great match, because in situations where you don't care who the winner is, it creates this problem where every time there's a kick-out, at least for me personally, I'm just like, oh God, this match is continuing. Just end it already. End my suffering. So it just, in a way, it actually makes it worse if you really, really don't like what you're seeing. But Triple H had his stupid entrance with the Conan costume where he looked like an idiot. And like, you guys, you do know WrestleMania Goes Hollywood was last year, right? It wasn't at 22. Okay, just throwing it out there. And they did so many things in the build-up where Triple H was like, oh, John Cena's the underdog and I'm the unbeatable King of Kings. I'm like, dude, all right, let's look at this from kayfabe. Okay, you spent all of last year getting jobbed out to Batista. You lost to Ric Flair, over the hill, old as fuck Ric Flair. And John Cena beat fucking everybody, except for Edge in a match where there was a Money in Bank cash-in after Cena won an Elimination Chamber. Other than that, Cena was basically unbeatable. So I'm like, who's the underdog here? Because you had one of the worst years of your career, and Cena, beat everybody. So it's like, no, I think he got that. This was the first time with Cena where they were like, he's the underdog. I'm like, bullshit. No, he's not. I mean, that would be like, actually, you know what? Perfect example, Super Bowl this year. Peyton Manning had a great career. Great career where he was dominant for so many years. This year he did not play so well. This was one of his the worst year of his career, let's be honest. And really the Denver Broncos succeeding and winning that Super Bowl was largely because of their defense. And there's a reason why the experts were picking Cam Newton and the Panthers to win that Super Bowl. They were wrong, but the justification for it was like, well, Peyton hasn't played that well, and the Panthers are hot, and the Panthers' offense is looking a lot better than Denver's offense. So it didn't matter what Peyton was in the past. It was just like, what is he now? He sucks. And all right, within the storyline here, it's like, all right, Triple H, you kind of suck now because you lost to Batista all those times. You lost to Ric Flair. You're kind of like, Yeah, you had a draw with Big Show in that tournament to determine Cena's opponent, and by some confusing thing, somehow they both drawed, and that somehow resulted in both of them advancing. I'm like, no, that's a loss. RVD wins the tournament, but whatever. Logic, what's that? But anyway, it's just kind of like, no, Cena, you're the underdog, Tripp. Cena's the unbeatable guy right now, but that logic, it's that logic that Triple H is the god of gods, the king of kings, the be-all, end-all, and all that shit. And really, it's like it didn't make sense for the story to book it that way, or to tell it that way when they'd already done all that stuff prior, where that made Triple H look about as mortal can be. And it just, the whole dynamic of the match was just uninteresting. The match itself was boring because you didn't have anybody to root for, and it was just a match that I never wanted to see, and did a bunch of things that I hated. Cena at this point was not very good. He was very awkward looking, and the moves didn't look right. And this was when he was starting to get into that, I kick out of everything phase. Cena wins, LOL. And Cena, of course, got the win with the STFU, and whatever. And another point against Triple H here is that this was when the negative reactions against Cena were really getting bad, like really, really getting bad. And Triple H, I would have looked at this like, all right, maybe I can get heat on myself and hopefully get kind of right the ship a little bit and get positive reactions for John Cena and do things to kind of help him out and make him better. He did not do that. If anything, they got worse after this match because the crowd started chanting, "Fuck you, Cena," and Triple H did nothing to throw Cena a bone and make him look, like he was the babyface of the match. He just it was kind of like watching Triple H jerk off to himself. He's like, look how popular I am, even though I'm the villain. And like, whatever. I hate this match, and I've got to talk about it 2 more times. Jesus Christ. But it's not the worst. No. It's not the worst, my friends. The worst match that Triple H ever had at WrestleMania was his main event against Randy Orton at WrestleMania 25, which again has the excuse that they had to follow Shawn and Undertaker, and that's why everything went south. Fuck you. That's my response to that. What went wrong here? Now, some people have said that the build-up to this match was good. I personally wasn't a huge fan of it because really my main problem with it is that I thought Randy Orton was the babyface completely. I was like, no, he's right. Triple H did ruin his career. He did kind of fuck him over and take the title from him after he won it at SummerSlam 04. And, and who did Randy Orton hurt? He hurt the McMahons, who are bad people that screw with other people's lives, and Vince was going to fire him for no fucking reason because Vince is an asshole. So it's like, fuck you, I'll punt you in the head. And to me, Orton's the face because the McMahons are just evil assholes. And because that's how they've been presented for years. That's, I was like, what, I'm supposed to feel sorry for them now that somebody's finally standing up to them and putting them in their place? No, fuck that. And, they also did the whole home invasion bit where Triple H attacked Randy Orton in his home. And to me, all right, compare it to when Austin and Pillman did it in 97. That looked real. I mean, that looked amazing, the way that whole thing played out. Now look at this one. It looked like something out of a bad movie. And not in, like, that cool Lucha Underground way. It looked like this is like a direct-to-DVD shitball movie that I'm watching right now. It didn't feel real. It didn't look real. It just looked kind of hokey and overly produced, and I didn't think it came off as well. Of course, Undertaker, Triple H looked like he jumped out of a lake. he was like all wet and stuff, and I'm like, is it raining out there? What the hell's going on? But so I wasn't a huge fan of the build-up, especially since all of Orton's heat was dependent on him beating up the McMahons. The McMahons came back the Raw before WrestleMania, so it was like all the bad things he had done had been undone basically, and. This was another chance for Orton to kind of go over Triple H and maybe, because Orton had cut this promo about how he's going to win at WrestleMania and become the new Triple H. That did not happen. That did not happen at all. And it just became like, Triple H, Randy Orton just got fed to Triple H on a silver platter, basically. They added Vicky Guerrero added the stipulation where if Triple H gets disqualified or counted out, he loses the title to Randy Orton. I don't know how Vicky Guerrero can override Vince McMahon. I don't know how Vince McMahon can't just say, fuck you, we're changing that. I don't know how that works, but Vince couldn't just change the stipulations back. But really, the end result of the stipulation was that it was basically just a restriction on just how much Triple H could beat up Randy Orton. Because watching this match, it was like, oh my God, Triple H basically just beat the shit out of Orton for a majority of the match. And by the end of it, he basically just pedigreed a corpse. And it was just like, because Triple H loves to pound points home. He's not real good at, like, getting to the point quickly or just doing one thing to make the point. He's got to pound the point home. So it's like, no, I can't just pedigree Orton. I've got to punt him in the head. I've got to hit him with a sledgehammer. I've got to fucking do everything else to him under the sun. And then I've got to pedigree him and get the win. And it's like, all right. By the time he punted him, I was like, all right, can we just go home now? We're kind of just spinning our wheels at this point. And it made Orton look like shit. Of course, Orton would go on to win the title the next month in a stupid 6-man tag, which is like, ugh. Whatever. Yeah, this match was boring. It was long. It was shitty and uninteresting. And any chance they had at creating something interesting, they squandered, because it's like, all right, can Randy Orton go over at least, and we can at least crown a new champion? No, they didn't do that. It was just Triple H wins after a really boring-ass long match where he made Orton look like shit. And that's basically what happened here. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It was a terrible way to end this particular WrestleMania. It was an awful, awful match. Truly terrible. And my pick for Triple H's worst match in WrestleMania history, and another one of his infuriating main events where he should not have been in the main event. But them's the breaks. But, yeah, finally I got through the Triple H WrestleMania matches. Woohoo! Yay! It's a shame I have to talk about some of those matches again, but whatever, I'll take it. It's like, finally, got past all the bullshit. But, yeah, that is all I have for now. The next video in the series will talk about the matches during Undertaker's streak, going all the way from the beginning at WrestleMania 7 to its conclusion at WrestleMania 30. So, until then, stay tuned, everybody.